Oh, over 30 years. I don't know the exact date, but I'm well over 30 years. I'm probably 32 years in the music industry. You know, we started out from a very small place, independent from Hollis, Queens. Used to, God bless the dead, Jam Master Jay. He was the first artist that I really got to know with Run DMC because we were all from Hollis, Russell Simmons. But that's how long we've been working at music. Been part of a lot of artists that we've dealt with over the years from those 30 years, all the way from a Mike Geronimo, Royal Flush. I mean, we even signed a Pitbull, a Little John, to DMX, Jay-Z, Ja Rule, Ashanti, Lloyd, Jennifer Lopez, Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige. I mean, the list goes on. Method Man, Redman. I mean, the list goes on. Old Dirty Bastard, I gotta throw him in there. That's one of my favorite sessions. He really showed me how he made records, and it was so different from everyone else. It was just a big learning lesson, and, just took it all in. That's a good question. I don't think I work for anyone but Murder Inc. I don't work for too many companies. I've always been an independent mind. We work for ourselves. So technically, I would say Top Dog Productions, not the TDE with Kendrick Lamar. We're the first Top Dog, and that was Irv's production company that I was running. Man, so if you know the history of Murder Inc., that's easy. But in working with so many other artists, we work with a ton of artists in the industry. Um, but if we go back to the beginning, you're gonna start with Mike Geronimo. I'm gonna say that's the essence because that's what really got us notoriety in the industry. So we worked with Mike Geronimo, Royal Flush. Ja Rule was in a group called Cash Money Click. Jay-Z, DMX, all was part of that initial start point. There's a record called Time to Build on Mike Geronimo's first album, and this was a record label that we was running called Blunt Records. And if you go to that Time to Build, you'll hear all the artists that we're talking about with Jay-Z's on that record, DMX, that's how long, and this is, man, I'm bad with timelines, but this is a long time ago. All the way to present day, you have, again, Ja Rule, of course, Ashanti, Lloyd, uh, man, to working with from a Jennifer Lopez and uh, Mary J. Blige. I mean, the list goes on and on. DMX, another one, God bless the dead, but Jay-Z, again, these guys, and everyone on their brands, on those brands, we worked with all of them, from Memphis Bleak, Beanie Siegel, The Locks, Puffy. Like, we work with everybody in the music industry at that era is pretty strong. I'm teaching artists to own their business. So it's not about taking that artist anymore, right? If you don't own this room we're in, right, do you care how the walls look, right? It's not mine. It's the artist. I'm just giving them the information and knowledge so they could grow and fester their own business. So it's very difficult to answer that question. I have Ricky right now, who's doing really well. But again, that's my niece. So I have an interest, a vested interest in it. But if I'm dealing with all these independent artists, my game is really not to teach them how to be Drake. I mean, not to tell them they'll become Drake, but to teach them how to be a business so that if they do become Drake, they'll monetize their business the best way. Man, I was gonna say I'm still here. That's my biggest success. I'm 53 in the music industry for 30 plus years. To me, that's a huge success. When you're talking to a kid that probably never thought he would make it past 25. I'm talking about life in general, like not yet alone in the industry. I never thought I'd be doing music. It was not something that I thought about. I had a career in construction and other businesses, from insurance business to hedge fund business, and I had to diversify, because the music industry at one time shut me down. It's still a passion for mine, to do, and that's why I'm here. There's so many ways. A lot of it, for me, I tour. So, and I tour in little markets with all these. I'm going to artists that you probably would never hear, see, or get the opportunity. Yes, the internet is one way, of course. So you have that aspect of the YouTubes and the SoundClouds, you really still find music on those outlets. Uh, but I love the personal touch where I'll pull up to cities, come out to the smallest venues. People look at me like I'm crazy, like, what are you doing here? And I just enjoy music, and I enjoy empowering independent artists so they understand that there is someone out here trying to hear and help them in their career. Absolutely. Absolutely very difficult to get your music to these executives, and then even harder from different locations, meaning if you're from New York, you might be able to run into some executives easier. If you're in LA, you might be able to run into some executives easier, and it's still very difficult in that scenario. But when you start leaving those areas of the mainstream, let's say, and you're in Boise, Idaho, what's your chances there? What's your chances in Detroit? What's your chances in all these other cities across the country? So absolutely is extremely hard, and that's where AvenueAR comes in. You could come right here and you could get it done. AvenueAR will absolutely help independent artists in their careers just like head over heels just from one thing right out the door, and that's knowledge and experience. The information you could get from these executives that are on this platform by far will surpass what you should need to know to get your music career where it needs to be. And that's it. You need to really understand that there's no blueprint in music. I want to make sure everyone understands that first and foremost. There is no blueprint. I always make a statement, and I said if there was, Universal would be bigger than Google if it was a blueprint, because they would just keep repeating and doing it over and do it over. They have all the relationships, the money. That's not the case. The information is about connecting the dots, and the knowledge and information that you could get from these executives will help you connect the dots. The more you talk to them, the more you will understand. I never promise an artist they're gonna be Drake, the biggest artist in the world. You know, I never promise them that because there's no way to figure that out. But what I can promise them is they can make revenue consistently when they do the business the right way. And they'll get that information from these executives on this platform, and they will know how to conduct their business the right way to generate revenue. And that's so powerful. That is so powerful that I could tell John or Jane Doe that they will be able to monetize their business, something they love, their passion. Who doesn't want to do something that they love as a job, as a resource level, from that standpoint? That's like amazing. Absolutely. The biggest artists take music from writers. And connecting those dots is so hard. They have writers' camps. The biggest publishing company sets up with some of these record labels to get the best writers to make records for the biggest artists that you love out there. I don't like to expose people in case you didn't know, like, of who is not writing their music versus, but I mean the biggest artists are taking music from some of these writers, and that is an extremely hard, challenging task from an independent standpoint for all you artists out there. In this platform, we can help connect some of those dots. AvenueAR will help just from the connectivity, just the information from all the artists you come across, the approach. I'm a big believer in work. I always use this analogy with basketball players. Michael Jordan, the best basketball player ever, became the best basketball player after he got cut from his high school team. So imagine the work he put in from high school to become the best basketball player ever in the world. That doesn't happen because he was just physically gifted, bigger. No, there's people that was his size that could probably be more athletic, run faster, jump higher, but his work ethic and the way you put that in changed the trajectory of his whole life and career. His passion, his desire, those are like the intangibles, and you can't figure that out. That's for each person in their own personal way, but he did it, and that came from work. No, you could go through all the greats. The only prodigies that I know is maybe Mozart, when he was writing symphonies at 5 years old. Like this, but there's no prodigies in things like the artists. Maybe an artist, a Stevie Wonder who's blind, is like he's a prodigy, but think of the majority of all the other artists, I always deal with the large number of things. So there's always an exception to the rule, right? And that's very important to understand. There's only one thing that there's no exception, and that's we will all die. But everything else has an exception. People say taxes. I don't have to pay taxes. You go to jail, but you didn't pay your taxes. It doesn't matter, right? But you will die. But when I talk like that, it's because it's from the large number of things. And I always deal with the large number, and that's what we're trying to approach here with AvenueAR. We want the large number. We want all these artists to understand they could come here, get information, and we could help them in their own career, in their business. How we would benefit from this platform, from AvenueAR, because all of these new artists that will come to us, we'll be able to find the talent that might be worthy of getting a situation to help them with their career and move them forward. And seeing from the number side of things, the vast amount, you really get an idea of who's better, where their sound is. You know, music it's all subjective. And it's not about, you know, we could go and manufacture records, but why is this artist better than this artist? And that comes because of their mannerisms and things, untangible things that you really can't just put your finger on. That's what makes music so beautiful, is that part. We talked about artists getting written songs. What if everyone gets the same written song, will they all have the same result? No, absolutely not. You know, I like to always say, if you listen to artists when we made records, they had to own that record and really deliver it, so it's like you felt it from them. It's that feeling. We could get to all of those artists that you get that intangible part of the creating of the record. And that is very important to me. That is absolutely like so important in music. And in today's times, it gets a little watered down. And our job is gonna be not to let it get watered down and bring it back to some real dominance and feeling. I recommend to every independent artist, once they release music, they're being treated just as if they are Drake. I use Drake because he's number one. He's the biggest, right? And I always want to compare against the best, I don't want to compare against someone lower. So if I'm an independent artist, I think like how I would tell them how they should be thinking. It's just a mindset. And if you're going to be compared to the best, so Drake absolutely uses plugins and things of that nature to enhance his sound, to make it even better. So if you could afford it and you could do it, absolutely you should do these things. You should be using the programs that make your music fuller, sound better, because when it goes out, it's getting compared, whether you understand it or not, to Drake's of the world. And if your music doesn't sound, how many times have artists went into the club, let's use that as an example, and they play their record right after the big hit record, and their record goes down, it doesn't sound as clear, it's not as loud. That's the problem. You are being compared, and then that is, sometimes you only get one chance to get that impression against a fan. And if you don't get it, then you have to get to another record. So absolutely, there's companies like, that have all of these things to enhance your sound. And that's what you should be, if you could, you should be paying close attention to how your music sounds and using these different plugins to enhance your music. The executives that are on AvenueAR of the highest quality. It's the reason I even would be associated with it. It's simple as that. If anyone knows about myself, I would never be part of something that I didn't think is that level, especially after this long in history in my career. There's no way. And at the end of the day, I love looking at those lists of executives that are on this platform and saying, man, we're side by side. And that's what I would love. That's what makes this platform so dynamic and so powerful. Do I believe that? Again, I would. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't believe AvenueAR will change the culture of this industry, and not just in a small way, in a major way. Along with, again, the players that are involved, the team that's involved, the minds that are involved. That's what spurred me to come out here and want to be part of this business and be on this platform. Without that, I wouldn't be here. So, man, that's like a no-brainer. The answer is you always want to be associated with some of the best. the best people from all levels. And that's what I feel AvenueAR is presenting. It's why I'm associated with it, why I'm sitting here talking, giving you guys the interviews you want. And that's it. It's like, this is it. The synopsis of AvenueAR, man, it's so much. It's very dynamic. One of my, again, if I was to go from a devil's advocate standpoint, which I want to say to you first, is because it's so massive. It's like, do you start at such a massive level versus tone it and be more laser focused in certain areas? But there's the potential is, and in all businesses, it's about timing. This is a new company. The timing has to be right. Think of Apple. I always talk about Steve Jobs. He's one of my idols, like one of my guys that I really looked at and followed and studied. Steve Jobs had a Macintosh and that shit crashed. It didn't work. It wasn't the right time. He went away, came back, and now we know Apple is what it is. The biggest company in the world, right? One of the biggest, if not the biggest. I can't remember if it is the biggest or not. And it was all about timing. In my opinion, this is where AvenueAR is at right now. It's just the right time. It's so needed for these independent artists. I was told there's about a market size of independent artists about 22 million. I don't believe that number. I think it's a lot bigger. And people are like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, it's a lot bigger because they can't count. They never could count us, hip hop. We're the wild card. So if they're counting 22 million, they're probably counting jazz artists, pianists, trumpet players. But when you get into hip hop, it's uncontrollable. It is the absolute wild card, and hip hop is what my passion is. Not that I'm not involved with all these other genres of music, but when I looked at AvenueAR and what they could do for these hip hop artists, there's no limit to where it could go. The partnership is real with myself, my company, with them, and I'm sure all these other executives. Just strengthens the company and where we could take this whole business. And we're about disruption, and this will be a disruptor in this industry and change the game. I've worked with such an array of different artists in my career, and I love all forms of hip hop. Everyone, it's funny because you mentioned Ja Rule, and Ja Rule, if you go to his history, he was a battle rapper. The beauty of Ja Rule is the evolution of Ja Rule. And I really believe he doesn't get his just due. He's one of the best writers in the game, period. To this day, he could write all types of music. Ja Rule has written for rock groups, pop groups, R&B, hip hop. It didn't matter. He's one of one, and I give him so much credit because to his credit, he changed a sound. He created a sound which I could sit here and tell you that all these artists are birthed from. So I would absolutely look for artists in his vein. Drake is part of a birth. Whenever you hear a rapper sing, think Ja Rule, right? Lil Wayne, who loves Ja Rule, my guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't end. And then all these when they started harmonizing, remember, he was the pioneer of it. He got criticized for it. And that is the biggest problem, right? He got crucified for it. And now you hear, every record you hear is pretty much a Ja Rule type of a record. So, when you put him in a place, in that space, of course, do I like other types of artists? Or Nas, who doesn't? Of course. You know what I'm saying? I'm a hip hop fan. But I'm open to sounds, different types of artists, and I understand how to market those artists. That's more key. We had to figure out how to market something that was never done before. And I could give a quick story about Murder Inc. and Def Jam and a guy named Ken Lane. What's up to Ken? Shout out to Ken Lane. Ken Lane was brought to Def Jam, a hip hop label, Because Ja Rule was getting played on pop stations with no money being spent. That's pretty strong. They paid Ken Lane a nice salary to bring his team in and style. Now, think of the trajectory of Def Jam because they bring in a pop side to their music, which was just a hip hop label. Think of the money they generated additional because of Ja Rule. I mean, forget about it. It's not even close. And that's why, if people talk to me about business, they can't really talk to me because they don't understand these kind of levels of things we did.